Shatter Sanders keeps demolishing every narrative that attempted to write him out before the story ever began, day after day, throw after throw. However, 4 days into Brown's training camp, here we are. Additionally, Sanders continues to run with the second-team offense rather than being hailed as a breakout star. And that brings up the apparent uncomfortable question that permeates the muggy Ohio air. Is there anything else this man needs to do? Go ahead and subscribe if you're interested in the true tale and all the messy turns that aren't shown on highlight reels. Additionally, you should certainly subscribe if you plan to stay to watch how this Browns quarterback crisis unfolds. Watching from the sidelines, you're both a little taken aback and a little amused when Sanders onto the practice field with the same deadpan poise that has characterized him since the beginning. He's not pacing. He's not enlarging his chest. He's simply locked in. It has a subtle magnetic quality. It's the kind of presence that steals attention without asking for it. 3 touchdowns, 8 completions, and no turnovers. And that's only 1 day. It's not a lucky streak. Control is that. That's self-control. That quarterback seems to have already seen the future, since he is throwing with such anticipation and reading safeties like bedtime stories. He continues to take pictures behind Dillon Gabriel despite this. Don't get it wrong now. Gabriel is a competent quarterback. He has powerful arms. He is on the go. However, he is laid on a dig route today during 7-on-7 and nearly has his receiver beheaded. The throw is hanging. The defense launches an attack. Nearly chosen. Gabriel returns to the huddle and resets with the first team despite this. Sanders is putting defenders in spin cycles in the meanwhile. He looks at a safety, moves him to the left, snaps his head to the right, and gives Dante Johnson a no-look start for 6. It takes place on the second field, away from the main cameras and large people, and it's wizardry. Scouts and assistant coaches can be heard whispering in low, doubtful voices close to the sidelines. They're beginning to become louder every day. Will he truly remain at Gabriel's camp? How do you ignore this, really? There is political strain in addition to performance-related tension. Sanders was selected in the 5th round. In the 3rd, Gabriel went. Like many teams, the Browns detest acknowledging when their meticulously built hierarchy begins to regress. There is additional pressure to play them early if the pick is higher. However, it becomes an issue when the 5th rounder outplays everyone. And not the type they enjoy interacting with. The front desk is currently keeping a tight eye on everything. The frequency with which Andrew Berry passes the second field these days is indicative. He's not just checking in, he's keeping an eye on everything, including the timing, body language, and QB reps. Even though he isn't playing for the first team, Sanders has taken center stage in this camp without even requesting attention. He is not advocating for it. He's not making calls for the camera. All he's doing is accumulating days. That is, in a sense, the absurdity of the entire scenario. He's doing everything correctly. Running extra sprints, visiting with receivers during downtime, arriving early, departing late, and watching film on the sidelines while awaiting his turn. It's just textbook leadership. While the rest of the league is only now beginning to realize, it is taking place in the background in secret. And the dynamics of the team. They're getting hot, I see. A few veterinarians are avoiding contact. Out of caution rather than hatred. The existence of this child is rapidly expanding. When they are stretching, the young receivers are drawn to him. He is trusted by the backup linemen to make the appropriate decisions at the line. Even the rookie running backs are beginning to advocate for participation in his unit's workouts. Leadership is the gravitational force that occurs in a locker room. However, that can be intimidating to the men who have been around, since Shatter isn't just playing well. It's that he's subtly but successfully winning people over. Kevin Stefanski is clearly feeling the heat. He was questioned about Shatter's mechanics during his press conference today. His eyes betrayed him, even though he delivered the standard coach speech about improvement and ongoing evaluation. He is aware of the situation. He is aware that this camp was never intended to be about Shatter Sanders, but it is now. The tipping point might arrive sooner than anyone anticipated. Next week, joint practices will begin. A club with a ferocious defensive line and a secondary that, like jumping routes, is playing the Browns. It will be authentic football. Additionally, Shatter is only playing against a second team if he continues to make mistakes against them. At last, the excuse dies. The writing on the wall is already apparent to the marketing staff. The majority of the rosters are selling Sanders jerseys. Every time he finishes a pass, his name becomes popular. More people like the video he shared of himself working out during the off-season while wearing full Browns gear, including a helmet under his arm and background music, than the official team account's previous 3 postings put together. These days, it's more than simply football. This has to do with momentum. Shatter also possesses it. Naturally, not everyone is overjoyed. You're hearing about pushback behind closed doors. Starting a rookie, especially one with as much limelight as Sanders, is something that some coaches find objectionable. There is a tug-of-war going on at the front office. Respect the draft capital or the events taking place on the field. The Jimmy has slam factor is another. Reporters are still thinking about his casual remark from an interview last month that he didn't need a rookie savior. Was it the shade? Was that smoke screen? Really, nobody knows. However, it is evident that Has Slam did not personally approve of Sanders' selection. The marketing division did. They saw the story, the charisma, the upside, and most importantly, the audience. Sanders funds. He's already helping the Browns curate nationwide, even if he never touches a snap. Here's the worst part though. He is more than merely marketable. In actuality, he's good. Superior to everyone's expectations. And that combination is uncommon, hazardous, and getting harder to control. The big unraveling may start with the next preseason opener. The calls will get louder if Shatter dices up another team's defense with the same poise and patience he displayed all week, and if he performs as well under the lights as he does in practice. Answers will be demanded by the media. The locker room will choose a side. The coaching staff will also have a decision to make. Follow the plan or make adjustments as needed. Because everyone is aware that Shatter Sanders is rising, ready or not. There is a lot of activity in the stadium. Yes, it's just preseason, but tonight feels different. There's an electric charge in the air, like if something is going to happen. The starting lineup has been a mystery to the Browns for the whole week. As usual, Stefanski plays it close to the chest. However, the murmurs start as the team gets comfortable with warm-ups. The white quarterback jersey, which is only worn by the player under the lights, is on Shatter. Joe Flacco is not warming up with the starters, but he is dressed and standing behind the huddle with his typical calm demeanor. Dylan Gabriel isn't either. Kenny Pickett is holding a clipboard while tending to a hamstring ailment. Everyone looks at Shatter, who is attentive, wearing a helmet and gloves. He's not living in the present. He has already committed to the upcoming 2 quarters as if they were the playoffs. This was not intended to occur. Not so quickly. Not for a pick in the 5th round. However, here we are. The initial drive. On their own 25, the Browns get the ball. Shatter is standing tall behind the center as the huddle breaks. For the first time in a live game, they were flanked by the real first-team offense. Twitter is practically exploding. The opening play is a smooth stretch handoff under center. Basic measurement. The rushing back gains a meager 4 yards as the defense collapses. Just finding a groove, nothing spectacular. A fast 3-step drop on the second play. The slant route is a type of pass that ought to be commonplace but becomes extremely difficult under pressure and time. Sanders closes it. On the numbers, a tight spiral. First down. The audience begins to bend forward. It's cooking now. The Browns go empty on the very next set down. 5 wide. Sanders is receiving the keys early from Stefanski. Evaluating his control. The defense adopts a robber's appearance while disguising cover 2. Shatter strikes his tight end on a seam pattern for a 17-yard gain after reading it in real time and looking off the safety. You base your game strategies on that type of toss. The sideline explodes. The seasoned veteran, Flacco, even nods subtly. That's command, not simply poise. The red zone is where the drive terminates. In third place. The pocket falls apart. Shatter remains calm. He breaks left and scans the rear of the end zone after sliding up and looking downfield. He fires on the run just before the sideline engulfs him. Touchdown on the back shoulder. It's polished, self-assured, and almost cinematic. The crowd isn't merely buzzing anymore. They are standing. Everyone who had any doubts about him fell silent. Everyone who backed him was vindicated. Additionally, front office execs are already mentally reworking the depth chart up in the press box. It's not just one drive, though. For 2 more series, Shatter remains. He scores 2 touchdowns and gains 126 yards while going 10 for 12. No sacks, no interceptions, and no mistakes in judgment. For a first NFL appearance, it's the closest thing to perfection. The plot has completely changed by the time he leaves the game. No longer the backup with upside, no longer the dark horse. Officially, Shatter Sanders is a contender for QB1. And you can be sure that Cleveland is aware of it. When the quarterback situation becomes complicated after the game, Stefanski does what all coaches do. He sidesteps. He describes the performance as encouraging, compliments the execution and advancement, and says we'll review the footage. However, the truth cannot be avoided behind the podium. Now was the time, and Shatter was in control. It's even more revealing in the locker room. The atmosphere is shifting. Previously silent players are suddenly voicing their support. Shatter's shoulder pads are being pounded by a few offensive linemen who hardly knew him 3 weeks ago, telling reporters that he has it. He hit the rookie receiver for his 2nd touchdown. He refers to Sanders as a born leader. The defensive players are also participating. One corner said that because he never makes the same error twice, he detested playing against him in practice. You don't say it about everyone. Respect is demonstrated by that. Earned the hard way. The decision-makers are gathered back at team headquarters. This was not the intended outcome. Flacco served as a link. Gabriel was an undertaking. Pickett was a possibility. Sanders represented the future. However, the future may already be here. The elephant in the room comes next. What comes next? The fanbase will go crazy if Stefanski benches Sanders in spite of that performance. Not out of rage or incredulity, since it will feel like a violation of the process and the notion that the greatest player gets a job, not just a Sanders. That results and work ethic are more important than draft status and politics. Additionally, if he does promote Sanders, the organization's entire attitude will change. This entails putting instinct ahead of investment. This implies acknowledging that the player selected in the 3rd round may not be the right fit. That entails rearranging everything. Playing this risky game is worthwhile, particularly if your team has spent decades failing at it. Guys like Shatter Sanders are not often encountered. Players who has the skills, disposition, and maturity to alter the culture. They are uncommon. Additionally, you don't keep them waiting because they weren't your first choice when they arrive prepared, willing, and clearly capable. The Browns now have a decision to make. Be cautious or take a risk. Have faith in your eyes or in the spreadsheet. Give the supporters something to cling to or go back to the familiar. The building already knows the solution. And so does the locker room. The rest of the league will also be aware if Sanders receives the first team reps at joint practices next week. Inside the Cleveland Browns complex, you can feel the pressure building like humidity before a thunderstorm. The name of Shatter Sanders reverberates off the rafters of the boardroom and the walls of the locker room. As a movement as well as a player. In practice, he launches each spiral. Each read is precisely timed. Every score in the back of the end zone conveys a message. He is not here to sit behind veterans in a courteous manner. He has come to take the lead. Nevertheless, the coaching staff appears hesitant to change course because they are still bound by a plan created prior to Shadow's arrival. It is the type of internal strife that divides franchisees. On the one hand, there are the traditionalists, coaches who rely on experience and think that success can be achieved gradually and predictably using a clipboard and hierarchy. Conversely, Sanders supporters and disruptors view him not only as a quarterback but also as a representation of what the NFL could do if it overcame its fear. Sanders maintains composure throughout meetings. He's not criticizing favoritism or rattling cages. His work is shouting as he lets it speak. Co-workers have begun to pay attention, particularly the younger boys. When Sanders is in a huddle, some of them murmur that it feels different. More urgent, more concentrated, and more like a winning squad. Veterans are more cautious. They are aware of how this league operates. Unless you're prepared to swim, you don't cause trouble. However, in private discussions away from cameras and microphones, several of them acknowledge that they have witnessed flashes, glimpses of leadership that are uncommon in rookies. Not so quickly. The fans are becoming agitated in the meanwhile. Opinion on social media is a tempest. Every tweet and video showed Sanders squeezing a no-look pass through a narrow window. Every dubious stat line from Joe Flacco or Dillon Gabriel feeds the flames. A rising number of people want the Browns to start winning instead of waiting. It's not that Flacco can't be used. He is the epitome of a steady hand. Dependable yet unimpressive. Gabriel makes too many mistakes despite having flashes. Pickett's physical and reputational recuperation is still ongoing. Sanders quietly outperforms them all while standing in the shadows of his quarterback carousel. Furthermore, the figures are accurate. Sanders had the camp's greatest completion rate. He has 0 turnovers. His leadership is growing. He's even confidently calling audibles, modifying protections like a pro, and correcting receivers mid-play. Every toss is personal because of the edge to his preparation and the chip on his shoulder. Every drill gives him an opportunity to show that he belongs. Nevertheless, Stefanski continues to be cautious in his public remarks despite all of this. He claims that it's a competition. Each of the 4 quarterbacks is being assessed. However, just 3 are regularly receiving first-team reps, and that's where the conflict is. Performance is no longer the only factor. It has to do with perception. Sanders needs to be more than merely good. He must be indisputable. Because the system will bury him under seniority, fear of change, and draft bias if he isn't. The front office is split up behind closed doors. According to reports, General Manager Andrew Berry is captivated by Sanders. The Browns are sitting on a gold mine, and it is bad business to bury it under a pile of depth charts, according to quiet but persistent rumors. Already, the marketing crew is drooling. Sanders is a brand, not simply a quarterback. The jerseys are selling. The media is paying more attention. The same question is beginning to be asked by national outlets. What are the Browns holding out for? And since everything changes as soon as Sanders on the field as QB1, that might be the most risky aspect of the current structure anyhow. Excuses vanish, fan pressure increases, and expectations rise, yet mediocrity also disappears. Sanders stands for going against the conventional wisdom. He's not here to oversee games. His goal is to win them over. Additionally, the Browns are running out of ways to conceal the possibility that their best quarterback may only be wearing second-team colors as joint practices and preseason games get near. The Browns will face the most difficult question an NFL team can face if this pattern persists and Sanders continues to put on a clinic while the veterans falter. Do we maximize our potential or do we safeguard our plan? Because someone else will notice if they wait too long. Other teams are observing, and their rosters wouldn't hesitate to give the reins to a quarterback who performs as well under duress. It's possible that the Browns are fostering their future. Alternatively, they might be delaying their fate. In actuality, Sanders can shine without permission. He's doing it already. Now he only needs the chance. And there are 31 other teams that might give it to him if Cleveland doesn't. In actuality, every impulsive decision Sanders makes is turning into a referendum. Not only on him, but on the Brown leadership team as a whole. The coaching staff is put in a more difficult situation every time he threads a needle on a corner route or breaks free to send a laser down the sideline. They won't be able to ignore it much longer. Not when players are aware, fans are aware, and to be honest, national media is beginning to take notice. There is a limit to how long you can keep the truth hidden before it begins to knock on your door. You're beginning to notice a slight change even in the locker room. After practice, wide receivers continue to run routes alongside him. Running backs are requesting practice with option pitches. Additionally, the defensive players acknowledge that when Shatter is under center, things are different, more decisive, and more dangerous. It's not just hype, either. The Browns have a strong defense. In practice, Myles Garrett isn't holding back. It should be taken seriously that Sanders is slicing them up methodically rather than haphazardly. This quarterback isn't a TikTok highlight. He is becoming an expert at the playbook, identifying disguise coverages and carrying them out with NFL-caliber timing. The obstinate nature of organizational ego is the issue. Dillon Gabriel was selected in the 3rd round. Even if his camp numbers don't, that has political weight. There is concern that acknowledging Sanders, a 5th-round selection, could be preferable to acknowledging failure. Here's the problem, though. This has nothing to do with acknowledging an error. The goal is to correct one before it becomes irreversible. Because Cleveland fans won't overlook it if the Browns keep going in this direction and Sanders ends up starting somewhere else, succeeding in a different uniform, and dominating Sunday night football highlight reels. Not now. They've witnessed far too many QB timeline errors. Too many years of acting as though consistent mediocrity is sufficient. Therefore, the choice is not limited to who will play in the first week. The question is whether the Browns are prepared to let go of the past and take a chance on the future. And let's just say he's more than willing to cash in if that gamble happens to wear number 5.